All right, so let's shift gears here for just a second. We've talked about referencing. We've talked about um, ways to approach art instead of with the mindset that we usually do. We come with our bias, and that's okay. We're going to do that, but give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to look at things a little deeper. One of the key ways of doing it that shows up in art or in visual images quite a bit is through symbolism. Symbolism is found in all sorts of things. It is found in logos. It is found in national symbols. It is found in uh, things we wear. You may have, you may know that guy that wears the same hat all the time, and if he doesn't wear it, I mean that's how you identify him. And when he doesn't wear it, it's as if that's not him. It's almost a trademark. It becomes something that represents him without you needing him. Um, just different ways of doing it. Lots of companies are represented by symbols. I'm sitting here right now looking at my Mac computer, and it has the little apple with the chunk taken out of it. I could take the whole computer away, and I could have just that symbol, and it evokes certain things. It gives us insight to different things. It gives us knowledge that goes a little deeper, if we allow it, than just a pure picture or a pure uh, visual statement. Um, Colors represent different things. If I say red, what do you think? Do you think anger? Do you think love? Do you think blood? Do you think, what do you think? If I say black, what do you think? Do you think night, scary, death? And those colors, they change in different countries, different cultures. We wear white for weddings, predominantly. Other countries wear red. Other countries wear yellow. So, things to think about. So let's take a look here for a second. We talked about color symbolism, and we talked about just representing different things. On the right, you have a campaign button from Dwight Eisenhower's presidential campaign in the 1950s. It's arranged a very specific way. We don't really care if it says "I like Ike." That, it goes well. It rolls off the tongue. But the way that it is laid out, red, white, blue. Red, white, and blue evokes a specific feeling. It evokes a specific idea. Those three colors represent the United States of America. If it was blue, white, red, it would represent France. On the left, we have very similar thing, except it's for a soda. You can probably guess what it is. It's Pepsi. It's laid out a very specific way. So we read it red, white, blue. It's an American company. It reinforces that Americanism. Ta-da! Here's a little totally different end of the spectrum. I just like, don't get me wrong. Here is a horrible symbol for the context that we mostly understand it in. The swastika represents what? Stands for, not if you know the symbolism behind it, the ancient symbolism behind it, but stands for what? Oppression, the Nazis, concentration camps, the oppression of millions, the Holocaust. A horrible, horrible symbol. But if you know the idea behind it, it makes it that much more powerful. Not in the context we know it as, representing the Nazis, but in the context of what came before, way before. Did you know that that particular symbol, the swastika, was also used as the route markers for the state highway system that went across Native American Indian reservations? That's redundant. Indian reservations in the southwest United States pre-1938 or so. If you look at it, you can see it right here. On the right, you have the swastika and a Thunderbird symbol. This is for the Thunderbird Division, which was made up of people predominantly from the American Southwest pre-1938. What's so big about 1938? That's all before World War II started. This represents World War II context. This is a totally different context. The symbol did not show up in World War II. The symbol is 12,000 years old. Technically, in its most basic context and in quite a few cultures, it's a good luck symbol, or it's a symbol for permanent victory. It's a symbol for peace in other cultures. And it's 4 radiating arms out of a central point, a tetrascallion. If it's 3 arms, it's a triskelion. But it's not just associated with what we know it to be associated with now. If you look down in the lower right-hand corner, that's the total antithesis of what we'd think of it in terms of now. With the Nazis, with the red and the white circle and the black swastika in the middle of it, in the lower right-hand corner of this image, it was an image from the Jewish culture that's been around. Like I said, it's a Sanskrit symbol. Sanskrit's the first written language. It's been around for a long time, way before there was anybody over in any country that was supporting fascism and Nazism and that sort of thing. So if you know the background and you know the symbolism behind something, it makes it, if you know the meaning behind something, the original meaning behind something, it makes it that much more powerful. We can see this in visual art also, but sometimes it's a little more subtle. Hopefully, you've seen this piece before, American Gothic by Grant Wood, painter from Iowa, and hopefully you may know a little bit about this. You may know that something beyond that this is just a man and a woman and they're standing in front of their house and he's a dedicated farmer because we can tell by his pitchfork, and she's the doting wife that does her duties, but she's not real happy, and they have their nice home. Hopefully you know more than that. We'll worry about the basic kind of fun stuff first. You'll know that the woman, the model that Grant Wood used, was his sister. You'll know that the man was his dentist. You'll know that this house actually sits in Iowa. I believe it's in Iowa City. And you'll know that there's a lot of religious symbolism going on here. The 3-pronged fork, not to be associated with the devil, but to be associated with the Trinity. The window on the house up at the top, a very specific type of window. Not a normal window, not a 2/2 window that's right over here over his shoulder, but a very specific type of window, a very specific shape. It is a Gothic window. It is based on a Gothic arch. It comes to a point at the top. Where were those found? They were found in the great cathedrals, your Notre Dames, your Rouens, your Amiens, those sorts of cathedrals. You have the very stoic nature of the husband and wife. And then something that most people don't see. If you look over her head to the left, back behind the trees, if you can identify what that is in the upper left-hand corner, it's a church steeple. Just to kind of hammer home, it's a religious painting, but it's not a blatant religious painting. It's not a crucifixion scene or a resurrection scene or one of the Stations of the Cross or anything like that. It's more of how we usually look at religion. We experience it every day. And we can see it in very mundane ways, but then if you look at certain things in certain ways, we see it all over the place. Okay, so to wrap things up here. As we go forward, we're going to look at a variety of artists, artworks, movements, highlights from different movements, isms. I want you to consider a few things when you're looking at the pieces. Don't just look at them and go, I don't get it, or, oh, that's pretty, and think that because it's pretty, it's good. It's not pretty, therefore it's not good. Don't do that. Ask yourself these questions. ask the questions of the piece itself. Where's this piece come from? What was going on at the time when that piece was made? You don't need to do the whole history lesson, but if you understand a little bit about the history of what was going on in the artist's world, how that piece was created, was it under the system of patronage? Was it more of during a time when artists were trying to be creative and less of doing commission work for other people? You get to have a little bit more a deeper appreciation for it. When was this piece created? Okay, so culturally, where, when, you get a different sense of the history of the piece and knowing of what life was like at that time. You can maybe appreciate it a little bit better. What was going on at the world at the time? Okay, it's a history lesson again, very much so. The first three are kind of the history lesson. So if you understand those sorts of things, it gives you a little bit more of a well-rounded set of things to look at and to look for in terms of your symbolism, in terms of the setting, in terms of the way things are positioned, especially if it's of a person, how they're dressed, those sorts of things. Who's the artist? Where do they come from? Do they have particular bias? Were they of a particular bent? Did they have issues? Did they have mental health issues? If you look at a piece and it looks a little schizophrenic and then you find out that the person that made it was very schizophrenic, well, okay. Or, better yet, if you find out that the person that made it was trying to make the works look schizophrenic. That's another. Now, that's not really going to apply for a class where it's prehistory to the early Renaissance. But if you understand the religious connotations, and if it's in Germany and it's more of a Reformation type thing and it's more of a Lutheran bent on the imagery, then it would be something from Italy where it's a heavy Catholic population. There's going to be a better understanding, a better chance to understand it. Try to understand why. Is it a commission piece? Is it an honorary piece? Is it an altar piece? Is it something that is supposed to be viewed in a church or outside in the public? If it's supposed to be viewed in a church, it may have a different feel to it if it's viewed, the exact same piece is viewed outside of a church. And if you can find it, and this is the trick, is can you find any information on how was this particular piece viewed, or how was that artist even viewed at the time of its creation? You take Manet's Luncheon on the Grass from the late 1800s, and when it came out by the art circle, the Academy, it was panned and scoffed. From the public, there was an outcry of wanting to see more, and they wanted a new, fresh take on what art could be. If you don't understand what was going on at that time in France, then you won't get to fully appreciate that piece. And then here's one that's the biggest challenge. Ask yourself, what do you bring? If it's a piece that has a certain look to it and it's appalling to you, ask yourself why. The piece that I showed you with the two cows cut in half, some of you may kind of winced at that, especially when you find out that they're real cows. Ask yourself why. Don't just go, ugh, that's horrible, I can't hack that, I'm walking away from it. Delve into yourself and try to find answers to it. And hopefully the answer isn't something as simple as, well, I don't like it. Why don't I like it? Because I don't. Well, that's a little shallow. Try to go a little deeper than that. Try to come up with some answers. You might surprise yourself. You might think at the beginning that you really don't like it, and then all of a sudden you really do. Like I said, it's like the song that when it first came out, you really hated it. The more you listened to it and the more you found out about the song and the person writing it and why they wrote it, the more you appreciate it and the more you like it. Next thing you know, it's one of your favorites. You might surprise yourself. That's all we have for today. We'll go from here and we'll start talking about the cathedrals next. We'll see you next time.